So what is going on, guys? I am Black Ops Amazing. Welcome back to another video on the channel where today we are taking a look at the Vanguard Zombie story and the potential of us seeing the likes of Thor's hammer, Atlantis, the Holy Grail, Die Glock, and much more within Vanguard Zombies. Just before we carry on though, I do want to say that today's video is sponsored by Opera GX. This is without a doubt the best web browser I have ever used. I think we can all agree that every web browser out there has the same boring generic layout with a lack of customization that isn't tailored to you. Well, Opera GX is the one web browser you can customize to your own style. For example, the accents in Opera GX are inspired by neon lights and how they break the darkness of the night. You can customize the browser in many different ways with special themes, wallpapers and colours, and being that we are all gamers here, I know how much we like our gaming setups to stand out. And that's exactly what this does. Opera GX also has a cool feature called GX Corner. This lets you stay up to date with free games, where the browser will actually select them personally and often find some real gems. But it isn't only games, they will also let you know of the best deals, the newest releases, and breaking gaming news, all in one easily accessible place. If you're worried about switching browsers and losing all of your settings, well, fear not. GX is also equipped with an import tool that will allow you to quickly import all of your settings from your previous browser to GX, like your browsing history, bookmarks and cookies. And in addition to Opera having its own extension store, Google Chrome extensions are also compatible with Opera browsers, so you can easily go to the Chrome web store and install any extension that you want. This is for me without a doubt the best web browser available, and to make it even better, GX is also available on mobile. What more could you want? So there we go. Opera GX is free to download, so go ahead and get it for yourself by clicking the link in the description. Anyway, let's get straight back into the video. So similar to what we saw in Black Ops Cold War, or I guess in any zombies game, there are always radios you can find around the maps that give us information on the zombie story. This is one of the main points where we get our information from. And actually, unlike in Cold War, we don't have intel that we pick up anymore, such as documents, or I haven't seen any ciphers so far, but as always since the beginning of zombies, there are radios. Now there are multiple different ones from multiple different characters talking about multiple different topics. We have radios from all four of our different artifacts. There are ones from Artefacts, Oberfuhrer von List, Gabriel Kraft. Most of them just talk about the story in general, how we got up to this point in Vanguard, but there are a few that are really interesting because the ones I want to show you in this video link to things that Dr. Strauss told us in Black Ops Cold War Zombies. So anyway, these radios I'm about to play for you now are from Professor Gabriel Kraft, who we know is the demonologist who helped the SS to uncover all of the artifacts that we see in Vanguard. He was forced to help them, and in these videos he explains exactly what went down during that time, so take a listen.
Professor Gabriel Kraft, 11th of March 1944. I'm creating a record of my involvement with the SS unit, Die Wahrheit. This may one day be called into question. And I probably won't be around to explain myself. In early September of 1939, I was in my office at the University of Leipzig with my assistant Franz. We were translating an ancient Sumerian scroll when a man walked in, unannounced. He said I must immediately tender my resignation, pack a suitcase, and depart for an overseas trip as an advisor to the SS battalion Die Wahrheit. That was the first time I met Oberfuhrer Wolfram von List. All I saw was a uniform and a perfect haircut. I had no idea what lay behind those icy blue eyes. I actually laughed. I had heard of his battalion, whose name perversely means the truth. They raided antiquities around the world, looking for evidence to support their belief in an Aryan master race. I waved him away, saying I had no desire to help Reichsfuhrer Himmler twist history to fit the Nazi narrative. Von List calmly drew his Luger and shot poor Franz in the head. His voice was perfectly calm. Do I have your attention now, Herr Professor? Gabriel Kraft, Audio Memoir Part 2. After shooting my assistant, von List had me dragged out of Leipzig University and thrown in an SS prison. There were a dozen other experts already there, recruited from museums and universities across the Reich to assist the SS unit Die Wahrheit. They were Explorers, historians, archaeologists, and so on. Many looked beaten. All looked frightened. Hung on the wall was a map of the world with notes and drawings next to different locations, things like the Grail and Thor's hammer, Atlantis and Shangri. We wondered if this was a joke. But when von List arrived, he was dead serious. The Oberfuhrer ordered us to help his troops find the places on that map and retrieve those relics. It made no difference that they did not exist. We would deliver them, or else. The others agreed and filed out to do his bidding. They were not stupid men. I alone defied von List. I said, I know what your Nazis are doing. I've seen friends and neighbors taken away. I've heard what happens at your camps, and I would rather die than help you. Von List showed a flash of anger. And then he smiled. He was amused. I actually thought I had a say in my own fate. Craft entry number 3. I was surprised von List did not shoot me. I had refused to serve him twice. Instead, he sent his men to my home. They broke down the door and took my spouse to an SS interrogation chamber. I had put my values and dignity ahead of my own life. So von List made someone else pay for my stubbornness. Should I refuse to help the Wahrheit or drag my feet in any way, the love of my life would be slowly tortured to death. Of course I complied. How could I do otherwise? But I also made a silent promise to myself. I would learn of the Wahrheit's secrets. If we found anything of real value, I would turn it against them. Somehow, I would destroy von List and his Nazi thugs from within.
So von List starts off by talking about how exactly he got himself into this situation in the first place. He was a demonologist, that was his job. He tells us back in September of 1939, one day when he was in his office at the University of Leipzig, they were translating some ancient Sumerian scrolls when all of a sudden von List walked into the room and told Kraft to tender his resignation, pack his suitcase, and that he'd now be working as an advisor for the SS. Obviously, as you'd expect, Kraft really had no choice in this. He told the SS he wasn't going to help them, and just by him doing that, they shot his assistant in front of him, where they then threw him into prison. And when Gabriel Kraft got there, he realised that the SS actually had dozens of other experts just like him, all recruited from museums and universities across the Reich. And hung on the wall where Kraft was, there was a map of the world with notes and drawings next to it of different locations, including things such as the Holy Grail, Thor's hammer, Atlantis, and Shangri, just some of the many things that the Germans were looking for. Anyway, von List walked into the room, ordered Kraft and all of the other people locked up there to help the SS scour the globe, find places on the map they had, and retrieve the relics. And whilst some of the people locked up agreed to do his bidding, Kraft didn't. He defied von List. Unfortunately for him though, because he then threatened Kraft by saying, look, if you don't do exactly what I'm telling you to, the same thing that happened to your assistant is going to happen to your spouse. And that was the point when Kraft changed his mind and complied. And we know what happened from there. They then went scouring the globe, found these artefacts, and that's the point where we are at in the Vanguard Zombies story. But what's really interesting in here is we learn they were searching for things such as the Holy Grail, Thor's hammer, Atlantis, and Shangri. And well, we've heard of this before because if we go back to Black Ops Cold War, there is a document from Dr. Strauss. We know Dr. Strauss is German. He used to work at Project N Station, so he knows exactly what the SS are up to. And he says in this document, as you know, I'm not a sentimental man, but lately I found myself thinking about the waning days of World War II and how I made it my business to surrender to the American forces. The alternative, capture by the Red Army, was too terrible to contemplate. Happily, I ended up among Axis soldiers and scientists brought here by Operation Paperclip. Not everyone shared my good fortune. I cannot help but wonder about all of my former colleagues presumed captured or killed by the Soviets. With no definitive record of their fate, the possibility remains that even now they toil in Soviet laboratories, representing a real and present danger that must be quantified. If our side got moon landings, ICBMs and Ethereum weapons from paperclip scientists, what might the USSR be extracting from their Axis scholars? Specifically, what became of those who oversaw Germany's Wunderwaffen programs? I personally knew scientists developing the Sonnengaue orbital solar weapon, the Hannenbu flying saucer aircraft, and the anti-gravity generator known as Die Glock. All went missing in 1945, as did their immediate families. I picture them working for a megagroup now, their loved ones held hostage. I also wonder about German expeditions to find even more exotic weapons and sources of power. The SS Annenbeer unit scoured the globe for the likes of Thor's hammer, the Holy Grail, and Atlantis itself. Fantastical, yes, but what if the scholars they forced to help them actually found something usable? So Dr. Strauss is telling us here that back during World War II, which is during the time of Vanguard since they are both in the same universe, he personally knew German scientists that were working on wonderweapon programs. They were working on things such as a solar weapon, basically using the sun's energy as a gun, a weapon, a flying saucer aircraft, and an anti-gravity generator known as Die Glock. He knows that Germans were working on these during World War II, however, all of it went missing back in 1945. So what happened to those experiments that they were doing? Der Anfang takes place in 1944. So during this time, if Strauss is telling us that these experiments went missing in 1945, that should mean that they are still around during the time of Der Anfang. But he also goes on to mention that the SS scoured the globe for the likes of Thor's hammer, the Holy Grail, and Atlantis, which is exactly what Kraft tells us in the Vanguard radios. Kraft also mentions another place, which is Shangri. And this is very interesting because even though Vanguard Zombies and Cold War take place in a different universe to our previous timeline, so from World at War to Black Ops 4, even though they take place in a different universe, they are still a part of the same timeline, the same story. And we know Shangri does exist because we've had a zombies map there. Are they talking about the same Shangri-La? That's a different question. But the Shangri-La that we saw back in Black Ops 1, we know of two very famous explorers to us, Brock and Gary, who went there searching for the gateway to Argotha. That was what the story in the original map revolved around. Brock and Gary went there because they believed it was a gateway to Argotha, and now we have the SS looking for Shangri-La. But not only that, Thor's hammer, the Holy Grail, and Atlantis. Atlantis is a zombies map that everyone's been asking for such a long time. We've had little hints here and there that it may exist, but we don't know. Could it be possible that they did find Shangri-La? They did find Atlantis. They did manage to develop a flying saucer and a way to use the sun's energy as a weapon. Since Vanguard takes place during this time, it's very possible that we see some of this stuff in the future, in DLC maps. So there we go, something very interesting to think about, a very interesting part of the zombies storyline. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below. As always, hopefully you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, drop a like rating, make sure you are subscribed to stay up to date with the latest videos on the channel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and as always, we'll see you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.